In this lesson, we're looking at how we find the midpoint between 2 points. Okay, so the midpoint is a point that's in the very middle, mid, of our line. So if we had a line between the green point and the blue point, our midpoint would be around here. We can also think of this as the point where you would have an equal distance between it and the first point and between it and the second point. But the midpoint is just a point that's halfway between two other points. Okay, so we're going to have a practical example, and then from that we're going to come up with the formula that we're going to use. So we want to find this point here, and it's pretty easy for us right now to just see that that's the middle of the line, but we want to show mathematically that that's true and find the coordinates. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the x coordinate of this point. So it's going to have something, comma something. We're going to start with this x1 here. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the x coordinate here and the x coordinate of this one. So here we have 0 and we have 2, which again matches these points down here. And we're trying to find the point that's halfway between these two. Now the way we can find a point halfway between 2 points is to find their average or their mean. So we can take 0 plus 2 and divide them by 2, because that's the way that we'd find the mean if we were calculating other data. You have two values, 0 plus 2, so you put it over 2. Which means we're going to get 2 over 2, which is 1. And hopefully you could realize that that was going to be 1. So the point here is going to be 1. Next we look at their y coordinates, 1 and 4. So we've got this distance here between 1 and 4. We want to find the point halfway in between. Again, using the mean, we're going to go 4 plus 1 divided by 2, which is going to give us 5 over 2 or 2.5. And we can see that that point is going to be here, as we expected, and it's going to be 2.5. So here the point is 1 and then 2.5. Now, what we've just done, we can make more general by thinking of x1, y1, x2, and y2. So here we have point 1, and here we have point 2. Now, we need to find a set of coordinates. So we're going to set up our thing something like this. And our midpoint is going to equal something, comma something. Now, the process we did in both times was to add up both of our values and divide by 2. To add up the two values and then find their mean. So what we're doing in those cases is we're taking our x1 value and our x2 value down here. So our x1 was 0, so that was this point here. Our x2 was 2. So we're going to get x1 plus x2 and then divide that by 2. We're doing the same thing on the vertical axis, but this time we're taking the y values. So we're going to go y1 plus y2 and then divide that by 2. And now this is the formula for the midpoint between 2 points, where you have point 1, which is x1, y1, and point 2. And I'll show it again in a second. Okay, so this is the midpoint formula, just rewritten so it's a bit nicer for you. So again, we have the midpoint, which equals the first x coordinate added to the second x coordinate and divided by 2. And then the y coordinate is going to be y1 plus y2 divided by 2. That's when you have these 2 points. Okay, so now we have a few examples where we're going to practice using the formula. So I'll write it down so we don't forget. So the midpoint is x1 plus x2 divided by 2. So it's our x value. And the y value is going to be y1 plus y2 divided by 2. Now, we have our point here, which is going to be x1, y1. And we have our second point here, x2, y2. Now, if we want to fill this out, we need to find out the values of the point. So here we've gone across to 1. So that's point 1. So our x value is going to be 1, and our y value is underneath the x-axis, so it's going to be minus 1. It's gone down 1. Our second point is now at 5, because this here is 5. And then 2, because it's up at 2. So now we have our x1, y1, x2, and y2 points. Now you don't have to do this step, but I'm going to just rewrite it so it's very easy for us. So x1 we have is 1, x2 is going to be 5, y1 is going to be minus 1, and y2 is going to be 2. So now we can put our values into the equation. So we have 1 plus 5 over 2 and then minus 1 plus 2 over 2, which is going to give us 6 over 2. And then minus 1 plus 2 is going to be 1 over 2. So finally, our midpoint is going to be 3 1/2. So that's the midpoint of our line. We can go across to 3, and this is 1/2. So we can say that this here is the midpoint, 3 1/2. Okay, we've got another question. This time we're not given the graph, but it's actually easier this way because we're given the points. And I'm just going to go and label them x1, y1, and x2, y2. It doesn't matter what order you do this in, because when we have our midpoint, we're adding x1 to to x2, and it wouldn't matter which order you added them in. So you could have chosen to swap those two around if you wanted to. We're not going to in this case. And then y1 plus y2 over 2. So our gradient is going to be 2 plus 3 over 2. So that's 2, which is the x1, plus 3, which is x2, divided by 2. And then it's going to be y1, which is 6, plus y2, which is 12, over 2. So our midpoint is going to be 5 over 2 and 18 over 2, which we can then simplify down to get 2 1/2 and 9. So that would be the midpoint between those 2 points. Okay, now it's your turn. Have a go at finding the midpoint of this line. Okay, so here we have our x1, y1, which is also going to be minus 2 in the x direction and minus 3 in the y direction. Here we have our x2, y2, and that's going to be 10 in the x direction and 2 in the y. So now we can put it in our formula, x1 plus, x2 divided by 2, and then y1 plus y2 divided by 2, which is going to give us minus 2 plus 10 divided by 2, and minus 3 plus 2 over 2. Simplifying down, we get this. Okay, and that would be the midpoint of that line. So that's the point there. Okay, and have a go at this one as well. All right, again, this one is an easier question. We can just assign our points. Get the midpoint equals x1 plus, sorry, I keep writing it, y. x1 plus x2 over 2, and then y1 plus y2 over 2. So our gradient is going to be minus 2 plus 3 over 2, 4 plus 2 over 2. So if we simplify that, it's going to be 1 over 2, and then 6 over 2, which is 3. Okay, and that's the midpoint of that line. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, continue on with the classwork.